Support learning by activating relevant background knowledge prior to new learning. This tip is similar to the tips of elaborate and relate to students' lives in that all three are about facilitating connections between what students are learning and their existing background knowledge. But this one has a slightly different focus on the activating of background knowledge before new learning to prepare the brain for learning. Activating background knowledge before new learning is like warming up an oven before baking cookies. If the brain is ready with relevant background knowledge already activated, we are going to get a better result, the result being durable learning, or using our analogy, a nice batch of cookies. When instructors help students activate background knowledge, information is more likely to stick because, as the saying goes, neurons that fire together wire together. It's basically priming the brain to be ready for the new information, ready to receive it and make connections with it. Let's take a look at a really interesting study that helps to illustrate the value of activating pre-existing knowledge before learning something new. A common experimental task in psychology is the paired word association task. In a typical instance of this task, participants are shown pairs of words and are then given a memory test. For the test, participants are shown just one of the words, and they have to recall the other word that went with that pair. So, for example, during training, participants would be shown a pair of words and would have to remember that they go together. Then they would be shown the next pair, and so on. Then, during the test, participants would be shown the first word of a studied pair and would have to report what word went with it. In the study I want to highlight, a modified version of the task was used. In this study, participants experienced two different conditions. In condition 1, during training, participants got to view each pair for 13 seconds each. In the other condition, condition 2, during training, participants initially only saw the first word of the pair. For the first 8 seconds, they were shown that first word, and they were asked to predict what word would go with it. Now, the pairs of words were loosely related, like whale and mammal, but not enough where accurate predictions were likely. Participants would have that 8 seconds to make a prediction, and then the second word of the pair would appear for 5 additional seconds. Both conditions allotted 13 seconds to each pair to be studied, but in condition 1, participants got to view the pair together for the full 13 seconds, while in condition 2, they only got to view the pair together for 5 seconds. Common sense would tell us it would be more advantageous to see both words of a pair for longer, as in condition 1, right? However, when tested, in condition 1, participants were able to report the second word of the pair 55% of the time. In condition 2, participants reported the second word of the pair 67% of the time, significantly better than condition 1 words. Making predictions actually helped participants learn the word pairs better. And the real kicker, all of the predictions were wrong. There were only a few trials where participants actually predicted correctly, and those trials were dropped from the analyses. So, what is happening here where making predictions helps a learner better remember what they have learned? I'd actually like you to make a prediction here. What do you think is happening here where making predictions helps a learner better remember what they have learned? What is your best guess? Pause the video long enough to consider your answer before resuming it. So it was argued by the study's authors that the predictions prepared the participants' brains to embed the new information, the second word of each pair, into a more richly connected network of knowledge. When participants made predictions, in an effort to make the predictions, they activated their existing everyday background knowledge related to the first term. And that activation prepared the brain to embed the new information into a more richly connected network of knowledge. Okay, so coming back to the tip, activate background knowledge. Let's take a look at some ideas for how instructors can help students bring their relevant background knowledge to mind before presenting them with course content. So, like we saw in the study I just showed you, instructors might consider asking students to make a prediction about something they will learn in that lesson. It could be a prediction based on the everyday background knowledge they had before joining the course, or it could be based on previous course content, which then also has the benefit of getting students to apply what they are learning to new situations. And this one is particularly interesting because we know that even if students' predictions are wrong, they still will have benefited from activating any relevant background knowledge. So even if students aren't quite ready to make an accurate prediction, they should still benefit from doing so. Another idea is for instructors to start a lesson with an illustrative story or example that relates to the lesson's topic. As students are listening and making sense of the story or example, they will be automatically activating their background knowledge related to the topic. And activating background knowledge can be as simple as asking students a relevant question that prompts them to think about the topic, even if it's just a question that students ponder without necessarily answering. What ideas do you have?